The first breaking point in my career was when the Air Force decided that I'm not good enough to be a fighter pilot. I will become a cargo pilot. And that killed me. And I think that was a very important moment in my life.
Zvika, Orron, thank you for joining me today. How are you?
I'm very good, very good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I think that what you have is what people usually put as a virtual background. Where are you right now?
I'm in my back garden. It's my Corona kingdom.
Wow, it's a beautiful morning. It's a beautiful garden. Thank you for joining me early in the day. I really appreciate it. Zvika, there's infinite things really we can talk about. And what I'd really love to concentrate on these 20 minutes is understanding your personal journey, going from being a major in the Air Force as a pilot to going and being an entrepreneur and being the CTO and co-founder of V, to now we're being in Viola Group and sitting on the board member of some of the most amazing companies. One of my favorite companies in the world, Immunite. Noam and Louis are incredible, and I just love to understand your journey a little bit better and your personal insights into investing in startups with leveraging deep technology. That's the field that I'm most excited about, and I can't wait to pick your brain. So Zvika, start us off. Tell me a little bit about yourself and how do you even end up in the Tayeset?
Yeah. So first of all, there is some background. It's because we're in COVID time, so you'll hear my girls screaming a little bit. I'm sorry for that. I hope you will be able to take it off.
It's a perfect addition. We're not going to remove anything, I promise you.
Okay. So I started, when I went to Flight Academy, it was something quite opportunistic. I never had a dream to become a pilot. I just rolled. I would say that when I started flying, I really wasn't, a major fan. I didn't fall in love at the first sight, and it took some time. But at the second year when we started flying jets, that became much more interesting. And the fact that you move from 2D to 3D was quite amazing. But then, the most, I would say, the first breaking point in my career was when the Air Force decided that I'm not good enough to be a fighter pilot. I will become a cargo pilot. And that killed me. And I think that was a very important moment in my life. And it took me, I would say, 4 to 5 years to overcome that, that point. Yeah.
So just as a way of background for those who don't know, I mean, in Israel, we grew up knowing we're going to go to the Air Force. I guess unlike your journey, most people that go to the pilot school have this burning desire within them from pretty much birth to become pilots, because you have to undergo this intense 3-year pilot course, right, where it's notoriously one of the most difficult experiences that people go through. I think it's incredibly impressive. They didn't even plan on doing that, but then obviously the people want to be fighter pilots, and so I understand what's going on there. But why was it such a turning point for you that you even reflect on it now, so many years later?
Because when you're 19. You haven't experienced, any, or at least, for me, I didn't experience a situation that I couldn't get something that I really wanted. If you fail on a test, and you can do it again. If you as a teenager, I wanted to work somewhere, and I failed to work, at some specific place, and I went to another one. Here, this is the first time when this decision is not reversible. They tell you, okay, you just don't have the capabilities required to become a fighter pilot. Nothing that you can do will change that. And I looked into history. I looked for, other situations where cargo pilots were able to, come back to a flight academy and become fighter pilots. there was only one specific case, and I didn't qualify to those specific criteria.
So is it
So that was a point.
Is that what you now that you reflect back on it? Because you're in some way you're also saying, I'm thankful that it happened as a meaningful turning point. How do you see it following your journey?
So that was the first interaction. When the second interaction with the fighter dream was when my squadron commander he offered me to join the experimental squadron in the Air Force, and I was like the only cargo pilot over there, and my job was to mediate between the engineering and the piloting to help to better organize and plan experimental flights. And then you have like the best fighter pilots in the Air Force doing the edge cases flights, taking the jets to the boundaries, and I was sitting and planning flights. And at that point, I said, okay, I have to make a change. So there were two groups. There were the fighter pilots, and there were the smart engineers planning the flights. I decided, okay, I have to move to the second group. And at that point, I decided that I want to become an engineer.
Wow.
And 2 months into my new position in the experimental squadron, I just signed up to biomedical engineering and started my first degree in parallel to serving as a pilot in the Air Force.
Incredible. So you're going through this experience in the Air Force. You find yourself in this experimental group, which I have to say sounds exhilarating. Taking that to the edge. How do you then finish your service, a very meaningful service? Do you know you want to be an entrepreneur? Do you want to go into first of all, the life sciences with V, and then to become an investor?
So what happened a few years after that, I was like in the third year of university, was that there was the horrible accident of Asaf Ramon. So Asaf Ramon was a fighter pilot. He had a crash with an F-16. The reason was a G loss of conscience. To those who are not familiar with the family, his father, Ilan Ramon, was the first Israeli astronaut, and he died in the Columbia. And when his son died in this F-16 accident, my partner, Omri Yofe, and me, we were like completely puzzled. We did not understand how isn't there a sensor that can identify when a pilot is about to faint and just connect to the autopilot and allow the pilot to grab himself together and take the plane back to landing. So at that point, we decided, okay, we have a mission. We need to figure this out. Long story short, we developed a solution that allows to identify when those pilots are about to faint. And together with Elbit, we built a solution that allows to connect with the pilot and to allow the plane to take control whenever is needed when the sensor identified that something went really wrong.
So is that really the beginning of V, this interaction between, a device and our consciousness or our physical being, and then having, smart sensors or analytics based on that? Is that really the beginning point of that?
Yeah, that's definitely the beginning. It was, well, we were really kids. We were 26. We had no business vision, intuition whatsoever. Looking at this market, this was a tiny, tiny, tiny market. Obviously, we cannot raise money from VCs. How many Western pilots are there in the world? Not too much. And so we got support from the Ministry of Defense, and we're able to develop this solution. And at some point, at some level of maturity, we shook hands with Elbit, and Elbit took this and developed it into a real product. And we decided to take the technological assets that we had at the point, which was the physics and the capability to develop optical sensors to monitor physiological parameters, the signal processing capabilities that allowed to extract the most interesting physiological signals out of the sensor and translate all of that into very simplified, actionable insight. So for the fighter jet, it was just, green, all good, orange, be careful, you're about to faint or something wrong is about to happen, red, autopilot take control. So all that sophistication is translated into three specific scenarios. So we wanted to take the same technological assets and product perspective into the well-being domain.
Democratize it for the world.
Exactly. And go into fitness, wellness, and allow, when you, at the point we were like, you have you want to run a marathon, and now both of us are where we can do 5K in 30 minutes. But if we will evolve differently, we are at a different age. We have different DNA. We eat differently. We sleep differently. Why isn't there a solution that can monitor your physiology and to customize the training progress specifically to your needs? So if you can progress faster, then the training plan will adapt to your progress.
Right. No, that makes perfect sense. And I have to say that I wish that I had used this, because I myself trained for a marathon. I guess it was about 5 years ago. Obviously I didn't really have anything that I could sense about my body except for my own mental being. And obviously, as you're running the marathon, God forbid you're going to stop, even if your legs are falling off. And so I did end up finish, but there were repercussions, and I definitely wish that I had things like this. But what I'm sensing here in this journey is, first of all, a lot of things that opportunities that came about and harnessing them, right? So I think that one of the things that I'm seeing through this show is that a lot of the times I can go back and say, yes, of course, Zvika, studied really hard to go to the Air Force Academy. He became a pilot. He discovered that technology is the way to go. And then he understood that he can then democratize this for the real world. And then he became one of the top investors in Israel. And it all makes perfect sense. But what I'm hearing from you in hindsight is that a lot of these things are, harnessing the opportunity, accepting it by circumstance, and then leveraging it to push it forward, right?
Exactly. I think that almost everything is event-driven. You need to find those points in life where you create boosts of motivation and to leverage opportunities.
Right. No, I think that's amazing. Zvika, today you're a general partner at one of the most incredible venture capital groups in Israel, Viola Ventures. Like I mentioned, you're sitting on the boards of some of the most, deep technology driven companies in Israel. Tell me a little bit about, your entrance into the VC world, and specifically about Viola, and how you look at the investments that you lead within the group.
So I joined Viola more than 4 years ago. The areas that I cover are areas where the major risk is in product development, while most of the companies, usually the major risk is in go-to-market and scale. Right. So the entrepreneurs that I meet are presenting a problem. It is a well-defined problem. And if their solution works, then there will definitely be buyers. I'll give you two examples. One is a company called Protantix. Protantix was founded by Benelux founders, and they identified a very important trend where mission critical systems are becoming dependent on electronics, not on mechanics. So if you look at a car, 10 years ago, you had 5, 10 chips. Today, you have thousands of chips. So most of the malfunctions moving forward will come from issues with electronics. But there wasn't any solution that allowed the semiconductor, the chips, to talk. So they came with a revolutionary idea. Let's integrate agents into the chips and allow them to talk. And when something goes wrong, then they will be able to identify the root cause and provide a solution. So the idea was, this is a very sophisticated deep tech solution. It meets, a specific trend that we're all experiencing. And it was, quite obvious that if they would be able to develop this type of a solution, then, automotive OEMs would buy it. Cloud providers would buy it. Industrial manufacturing hardware would buy it. The major challenge within the technology and And you know, another, and that's one example. Another great example is the company that you mentioned before is Imuni. And Imuni, yeah, so really Lewis and Noam are amazing entrepreneurs, and they came with an idea saying that you know, the immune system is a black box, and it's time to reprogram the immune system. And you know, 5 years ago it was not possible because you did not have the information, the data that would allow to hack this system. But now when you have single cell RNA, then you can extract much more information, and the granularity of the data allows AI to create manipulations and extract insights that really allow the hacking of the immune system. So these are two examples of deep tech technologies that at the point when we invested at the seed stage, it was, you know, so in Protantix it was seed stage. When we invested in Immunite, it was actually in the A round, but it was still Siri. There was not, you know, a real product in place. But given the timing, trends, introduction of new technologies, we believe that at that point, if they succeed, then they can really, you know, create a dent and an impact in a significant market.
I love it. So Zvika, you know, take me up, you know, 30,000 feet, and one of the things that you mentioned that I want to dive deep on is this idea that, you know, most startups, I guess, you know, more than 90% of startups, really their biggest challenge from day one is this, okay, this go-to-market, do you have product market fit? Like, are people actually going to enjoy using this product? But then there is this, you know, this small margin of startups that are leveraging deep technology. And like you're mentioning there, the risk, while there might be some still risk about their go-to-market and whether, you know, they have OEMs and whether people can still sell. But the bigger question is, can they actually produce the technology? And it sounds to me that as an investor, you have to be in a very different mindset when you invest in those types of companies rather than more traditional startups than what one see in their day-to-day. So how do you see, you know, your perhaps due diligence approach or your thinking approach differ from that of an investor who's concentrating more in not necessarily deep tech, but more in companies whose risk management is the go-to-market and product market?
So I think it really depends on the specific vertical. So you know, if you look at semiconductors, I think that investing in you know, and first-time semiconductor entrepreneurs, it's much more challenging. When we look at semiconductors, there is so much knowledge and expertise that you need to have. So when we invest in a semiconductor entrepreneur, we do, you know, a lot of it is based on past achievements.
Right.
And to understand, you know, if all the great stuff that these individuals did in the past, are they only, you know, are they a one-trick pony, or can they really expand and look into new areas? So I'm trying to understand how curious these guys are. What type of background research did they do? How did they enrich the team? So that's for semiconductor. When you look at, you know, new brave world like computational biologies, then there is not enough legacy to find those people that did it already 10 times in the past. So
Right.
you're looking for, first of all, people have to be super bright. How do you evaluate intelligence? Just spending more and more time with these people. When you look at the more complicated problems, then you're looking at more, you know, rounded, holistic teams. So if you look at computational biology, you need immunologists, you need computational biologists, you need mathematicians. And when I look at these types of teams, I try to first, you know, understand what is the baseline of the founders and what type of people are they able to recruit, because these
Right.
teams, to win, they have to recruit the best of the best. So the best indication is to see, were they able to bring top-notch people in different disciplines, and if they were, this means that these, you know, those top-notch people were appreciated enough, or they were interested and were curious enough to follow these people, and that's a very good indication to see if this team can break, you know, those very complicated tasks.
Now, do you go ahead and assume that, you know, any problem that is meaningful enough to solve, that takes enough, you know, brains and manpower to solve, is relevant for the world? Because one of the things that I'm observing, and as I walk, you know, in the floor -3 of the engineering building at Stanford, I see a lot of, you know, fascinating PhD theses, you know, people working for, you know, 10 years on different AI models or trying to prove the plausibility of something happening. I don't see all of them, being able to reach a product stage, even if the research does turn out to be, to be effective. So how do you do have to go and still evaluate whether there is some market for this, right? It's not just, okay, if you work on a problem that is meaningful enough for 10 years and you solve it, then automatically you're going to be successful.
Right. So, in deep tech companies, one of the challenges is that you need to try to predict will there be a need for this type of a solution in 4 years or 5 years from now.
Right.
It's not like you're developing a SaaS product that so here this diligence requires hours of conversations of people coming from the domain and understanding how do they see trend in the market,
right.
What and so it's really important to not to speak with people that have enough intuition and depth to hear what do they see, what will happen in the market in 3 to 4 to 5 years from now. And when we invest in those companies, the existing market is zero. And we need to bet that in 5 to 8 years from now, this will be a multi-billion-dollar market. So that, I think, would be the most significant challenge.
I love it. Zvika, I want to thank you for being so generous with your time and for coming to speak with me. I know how busy you are. I love, the world of deep technology, and I think that, looking at a market that doesn't necessarily exist and working on a problem that, will be hopefully solvable in 4 or 5 years, and then trying to align whether the market will be there or won't be there. I think that's one of the most exciting things possible. And obviously looking at the companies that you're on the board of and have invested with, it's part of Viola. It's remarkable. And I think that some of these companies are literally going to change the world, if not today, then in 3-4 years. But thank you for being here. And the most important question I have for you is 3 words that you would choose to describe yourself.
Okay. I would say the first one is I'm quite stubborn. The second is curiosity, and the third that I'm quite sensitive.
Interesting combination of those 3. Zvika, toda rabba, thank you very, very much, and stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you for having me. Good luck. Thanks a lot, Michael.